Okay, we are going to quickly be looking at construction script. So, construction script is a very handy kind of alternative blueprint area that we haven't really looked at yet and can be really helpful for us, especially with constructing complex levels that we want to look realistic and unique. So what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to make a blueprint class and then an actor, and I'm going to call this pillar because I'm going to base this off of your pillars that you've been working on. So if I open up my pillar blueprint, once that loads, so we've been used to working in two places. We've got the viewport for all the 3D elements and the event graph for all the functional elements. But today we're just going to have a very quick setup in the viewport, and then we're going to go to construction script and we're just going to check everything's working how we want. So for our pillar, what we want is our pillar is made of 3 static meshes. What we have is the central pillar and then a top and bottom to the column. So I'm also just going to throw a box collider on there, and I'm just going to reorganize this. I know I talk about this a lot, but a lot of people just ignore it. So collision should be the very first thing in the list. We want it to be the root. So drag it up, make new root. And then we want everything to be childed to this. So you see how if I collapse that, everything goes away. But right now, this is actually childed to the other mesh. So if I just drag that and put it over the pillar and attach, they'll now all be perfectly in line because they're now all equally childed. So then what I want to do is I just want to set some basic static meshes. Not box it, they are called cubes. So if I just put on a 1 meter cube, I don't know why I put on a cube when there are actually cylinders. So I'm counting this as my pillar body. So if I just now I want that unlocked, if I set the scale to like 3 maybe, and then I've got 2 other meshes that are going to act as my top and bottom. So I will use the cube for these. So if I have cube 1 and cube 2, what you'll need to do, that's something that I can't really do properly with mine, is make sure your meshes are properly placed. So with my pillar and cube, there's kind of no way to really tell other than that's too high, whether they're in the right position or not. But if I just drag that down and I'll say this is acceptable for what I've got, but you make sure that your tops and bottoms are properly sorted. And then what we can do with this, we've just got, this would just be our pillar fully assembled now in a blueprint. But what we can do, there's kind of a few things we can look at. So with our construction script, what we could do is we could take any of these. So if I start with, I believe that's the column itself. If I start with this, I can make it so I can be able to set the different parts of this pillar from the blueprint itself. So this is like my completed pillar, and I could have a little menu here that lets me swap stuff out without having to realign everything every time if these are separate parts. So how I do that is I've got the static mesh, which I dragged over here, which is just our pillar. And what I can do is if I make a new variable and I call it column, oh no, maybe pillar's more accurate. I call it pillar, and I want the type to be a static mesh. So regular static mesh, make it an object reference. And I want it to be editable. I want it to be editable. So now when I look at here, I can now see pillar and the static mesh. It's currently none because well, obviously we've not finished setting it up yet. But now I've got a little menu. If I go ahead and do, I forget what the names of the tops and the bottoms of the columns are called, but you'll know, so you put in the right name. I'm just going to call mine top column and bottom column. And we just want to do the same thing. We just want to make these instance editable. So now I have all 3. And now we're going to make it so adjusting those menus will adjust what is set as part of our pillar. So I'm just going to rename these so they match. So right, sm underscore pillar, sm underscore top column. Oh, I should check that's actually the top one. Nope, that is not the top one. Or bottom, and last one, top column. Okay, so now I won't get confused between the different ones when I drag them in, so it'll be easy to connect everything up properly. So what we want is our construction script. We want it to set these to be whatever the variables are, because when we mess with this menu, we are setting the variable, right? But they appear obviously blank because we haven't set a default one. So when we set these, when we set them here in this menu, it will set it here. We'll set this one. So if I have tell my construction script to take whatever this variable is, and I want to take the actual pillar from our viewport, and I want to set the static mesh, and I want the new mesh to be whatever our variable is, whatever's been chosen from the list. So if I just put those like that, make these look a bit neater. So now you'll see our pillar has disappeared. That's because the default for that variable is none, so it has set it to none. If I go back in here and I go on my pillar and I look for a cylinder, you'll see it now defaults to the right kind, and that's that. And if I changed it to, this is going to break it because I don't have, my shapes aren't really meant for this, so obviously mine's not going to look right when I change stuff, but you will have ones that have been made for the right purpose. See, now that's way too big obviously, but all your stuff should fit together because you made it to fit together. This is the basic point. If I set both of these to their right, they're just 1 meter cubes. So if I make both of these just hit my arm, both of the 1 meter cube, set both of those, and then I just want to get 2 of these. Just copy up these and just connect everything up. So if I connect the bottom column to that one and the top column to this one, and then get my variables in, so get the one for bottom column and the one for top column, and now when I change any of these, I can now just swap out any parts for any other parts. So I can swap out anything. So obviously with yours, this means with any changes in the column part, or the pillar part, or the top or the bottom things that go on the top and the bottom, if you make any new ones, if you make even slight adjustments, you can just very quickly swap out to a different ones, and you can have your columns look unique. So say you've already made the pillar section in the middle, the tall part, and that's fine. But obviously, say if you use that one everywhere, it's going to look a bit samey. If you then go into Substance and play with some of the details, if you go back into the 3D software and maybe you put some more scratches in, maybe you put a big crack in this one, you can come back in here with your new model put in, and where you've got a bunch of pillars already, say you've got like a lot of these, you say, well, I want to make this one and this one look more unique, so I'm just going to go on there and I'm going to put on the new one I just made. So now I've swapped out for the new one, and I didn't have to bother replacing the meshes in the right place. It's already done. So that's how we can use construction script to do some really powerful stuff with like configuring our meshes. That's one really good one. That's a really good one, and that's your basic blueprint right there. Just make sure you set up the variables, make them editable, and there it is. The other thing we can do with construction script that's really cool for placing little things, which I'm going to quickly do in a different blueprint so we don't ruin that stuff we've already got. I'm just going to call this random underscore items. So random items, if I just give this a very quick mesh, and say if I just put the cube on it, So when you've got little items that are going to be kind of scenery placement, you know, if you make like braziers or little chairs or anything that's going to be just dotted around as just to make things look a bit more interesting, to break up the scene, to have little objects that bring more life to the scene. If you're placing these and you're placing them and you're putting around these everywhere, they're all going to look exactly the same. They're all going to be at the exact same rotation, the default just 0 degrees rotation. So what we can do is we can use ConstructionScript to randomly rotate them for us, so everything looks a little unique. So if I jump into ConstructionScript for this, all I need to do is I grab that mesh, and I want to set its rotation. We set it to world rotation, and I only want to spin it on its axis, so top down, because for most objects you have to place, spinning them like this will look fine, but this is probably going to look pretty wonky. So we're just going to focus on the Z. So what I want to do is I just want to affect the Z. So if I right click this rotation, I can split it, and that means I've now got separate ones for the different rotations. So I'm only interested in the Z. And what do I want to do with the Z? I want a random float. So this will just give us a random float. That's not exactly what I want, because that one's only given us 0 to 1. So if I get in range was what I wanted. So if I connect that random float, minimum 0, maximum, because it's angle 360 degrees. So now what this will do is when it's constructed, it will take that one mesh and it will give it a random rotation. So you see they've all suddenly kind of jumped, and if I move them again, it will re-rotate them, and it will just apply that every time, and any object I add now will come in with a random rotation, so they'll all look just kind of a little bit more unique. I've kind of got them all on the same similar-ish angle with that one, but it's harder to tell the uniqueness with squares. So that gives us random object with a bit of a random rotation. And the same way we did the column, if we want to use this for every little meaningless kind of item, every little scenery detail bit, the same way we did with the column, I can have it so I can choose it from the menu. So if I just say this is our static mesh, nope, that name's already taken. So if I say variable sm and I make it into a static mesh, make it editable, and then what I'm going to quickly do here is what I did with the other one. I want to take the static mesh that is the object, I want to set its static mesh, no, not like that, I want to set its static mesh. You want this one, you want the one that's the F. I want to set its static mesh, and I want to set it to the variable, which obviously has no default, so I'm going to quickly throw the default back on. So now, as well as having these randomly rotate, which they will still do, if I decide, well, I'm done placing all my braziers, I want to put down, I don't know, I've made some like little rocks or something. Say, okay, so I'm going to switch to my little rocks, which is, say it's this one. Now I've got new object. It's a bit harder to tell the rotation with this, but you can see the texture surface changing. And now I've got a different object still rotating, and I can just use this for all my random items. And remember, you can just copy these out with holding down Alt. So I'll go, yep, and now I've got another one. This one will keep rotating on its own, and put that over there. I want another one next to it, put that over there. A lot of time in the grand scheme of producing things. So that's it for now. We are later going to look at some splines for placing walls. I don't have time right now to pre-record something for that. Keep an eye out for that video. I will post it sometime on Wednesday, as that will be the next day I'll have been able to go home and record and come back to campus with the video to upload. So Wednesday we should have some spline stuff for placing down walls, really easy and quick and adaptable. But that's it for this ConstructionScript. Hopefully you got on. As always, ask questions. Let me know how you get on. If any part of the video was confusing, I was a bit rushed to make sure it got out. So that's that.